In this video, I'm going to show you how to go from this to this and to this in just a few easy steps. This is Rudy from the Home Improvement channel with another video showing you how to do things around the house. If you're a subscribed member to my community, then welcome back. If you're new to this channel, consider clicking that subscribe button below and like this video if it was helpful for you. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first thing I like to do is find the desired height of where you're going to put your TV and you're going to want to mark the stud. It's good if you have a TV in the stud. The bracket that I have has 3 bolts that go up and down like this. Some brackets for bigger TVs are long enough to catch 2 studs if they're 16 inches apart, but this particular bracket has 3 bolts that go straight up and down on the same stud. So I've got my stud finder here, and the stud is marked in the center. And then after I do that, I'm going to want to pre-drill a hole there and get 1 bolt started in the bracket. So let's just pre-drill the hole right here, right on our dot. You can get by without pre-drilling that, but I do like to pre-drill it. The bolts are pretty big, and you don't want to take a chance on splitting that 2x4 that's in the wall. So I like to start off with 1 hole for the 1 bolt in the bracket. If you try to drill all 3 holes at the same time, it is going to be so crooked, you're going to have a TV that looks like the Leaning Tower of Pizza. So get 1 bolt in there. And I'll even make it snug enough so that it holds itself. Now I can kind of put the TV in the position where it's going to go, and I can attempt to level it before I make any new holes. So I have found in the past that these brackets are not exactly straight sometimes, so you might be tempted to go like this and try to level the bracket, right? But what I've seen in the past is when you do that, you still wind up with crooked on this part right here. Something is a little out of square or whatever, but I have found that to be my experience. So when I level these things, I will level the part that actually goes to the TV. So we can see that that's the bubbles on the right side. Let's see if I'm right. And that one, the bubble is almost straight up and down or on the left side. So don't use this to level the TV. Level it from the part that actually contacts the TV, and you're going to have better luck. That's pretty close right there. Let's go ahead and drill another hole. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so this next part here is actually optional. If you wanted to, you could screw this directly to the TV and just let all these cables hang, and it'll be fine if you don't mind looking at all those cables. But if you don't really want to see those cables, you do have a couple of options. In this particular case, I'm going to install this box, and where I'm going to put that is that the TV is going to go here, the bracket's going to swing to the left, and this is where it's going to stay most of the time. So I can put that box right in this area right here and drop it down. There's a plug straight below this that I'm going to tap into and run a wire down to that plug. Now, yeah, you could run an extension cord into the wall and come out the bottom and next to the plug and go into the plug, but that's actually against code, and I'm not going to do it that way. Okay, so I've made a template right here that's the right size to fit that box that's going in the wall. All right, I'm allowing enough room for the flange of the box to go around right here so that it's not hitting that. Now, what I would like to do is kind of mark this right here into a corner like that. Mark the other side. This way I can make this thing level. That's pretty close. Now I can just put the top of the cardboard across that line and the rest of it should be straight. Alright, so we're just going to cut this square out. Now it's important when you're using a tool like this not to jam it into the wall too bad, because you never know what could be behind there. There could be an air conditioning duct, there could be wires or pipes or anything like that. So I usually like to kind of skim the surface and just enough to get through the drywall. And it's lucky. We're empty. Very good. That's very good. Okay, let's test fit our piece. Like a glove! Fits good. Now, if you don't have an oscillating tool like I just had there, you can use a drywall knife like this, and it will do the same thing. And I'll give you the same warning about going too deep with the knife, because you never know what's going to be behind that. Okay, so what we have here is the outlet that's directly below my TV mount where I've been working. I believe since they've run the two sets of wires here, we've got two number 12 wires running through the left side here, and they brought them both through the same hole in the outlet box. I think I can pry this open a little bit right here and feed the wire up from the bottom. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. And if you don't have a situation like this where you can feed your wire through one of the holes, you're going to have to remove this box and use an old work box. The way that I remove these boxes is if you kind of find where the 2x4 is, in this case it's on the right side, you can pry in here like this and access enough room like that. To get your Sawzall, you'll have to run a Sawzall blade down, and you'll have to run one up to cut the nail. Now this is a little bit risky. You have to be very careful. You're going to damage the drywall if you let it go crazy. You have to do this very delicately and cut the two nails. And you also have to disassemble the wires, obviously with the power turned off, untwist the grounds, get everything free. That way when you cut these nails, you can remove the box. Also, what I've done in the past is I've taken a oscillating tool like I was showing you earlier. You can take one and slice the box in half, okay, so that you can manipulate it around. Careful not to cut any of the wires. I have another video here where I can kind of give you an idea. I'll show a link in the description for it. That I'm removing a box in this video, and you can kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. But in this particular case, I don't need to remove this box. I'm going to have to move the camera out of the way because I can't see, and then I'll be back. But all I'm doing is I'm trying to get in there and pry those two wings down so that there's room to push a wire through. All right, so I did pry those two little things down right here, as you can see. All right, so I'm going to try to feed this up. Now, you could try to go from the top down, but the chances of you feeding that wire down 5 feet and then actually getting it through that little hole in the outlet box is pretty slim. So I'm going to go from down to up. All right, that worked like a champ. Okay, now that we got the wire through, let's put our box in there. Now the only thing that you're not really going to be able to do is staple the wire inside the wall. There's just nothing I can do about that. If you have to have your wire stapled, then feel free to rip your wall open. But that's about the only way you're going to be able to do that. Now I could put the plug on top. It doesn't really make any difference which way you put the box. Now, of course, your low voltage wires will all go through here, and I'll show you how to deal with those on the bottom in just a minute. But for now, we're working on the electric. You're going to want to bring your wire into this box right here, so all you have to do is kind of similar to what I did down below, is you'll have to punch this out so that you can feed the wire through. I usually like to leave about 8 inches of wire sticking out, and that should be plenty to hook the plug into. And the same thing here, we just tighten down these screws and those little flaps come out behind the box and hold it in. And we're ready for our plug. One thing I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but the reason I'm using this 12 gauge wire is because this is a 20 amp circuit that I just happen to be using right here. I would have rather it been a 15 amp circuit so that I could use the smaller wire, but you need to match the circuit with the right wire. So that's why I've got the yellow wire here, and also the plug that this came with is a 15 amp plug. I'm going to go ahead and put it in for now, but I'll probably change it later to the correct size plug. The 20 amp plug has a little tick mark. It's very important not to use. Like if I were to use 14 gauge wire on this, that wire is underrated and is not the right wire. When you peel these wires, try to stay in the center so that you don't wind up cutting your knife into one of the wires. And these things work great. You just got to put the wire through this is the 12. I like to make a little loop in there, like so. And just attach the wire. Make sure you get the wires in the right order. The neutral side and the ground screw are always on the same side. That's the white wire. Goes on the left side, and the ground on the left side, and then the black wire on the right side. And also you have the smaller prong. That's always the hot side. Also, when you're attaching these screws, I always put them on there like this so that the loop goes in the same direction as this tightening screw. One thing that you should note with any plug, I like to look inside after I'm done and make sure that the ground wire is nowhere near the hot wire when it's inside the box. Now, as I've stated earlier, this is 12 gauge wire, and of course they've used the wrong plug, and I've noticed that throughout this house they've done that a lot. But if this was a 14 gauge wire, and you've already got 2 sets of wires in there, the problem is simple. You just peel the wire and you push it through these holes right here, and then you can accommodate 3 wires on this plug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these wires loose, and I'm going to twist them all together, including this one, and then I'm going to make a pigtail coming off of that and coming back to this plug. Sometimes if you can't get the wires off of the plug real easy, you can just take the screws off, and that solves that. And of course the power is turned off. See, I'm just going to twist these all together and tie a pigtail on there and go back to the plug with that. This isn't ideal. More than likely you're going to be working with 14 gauge wire, and that will make things easier, but this 12 gauge wire is a bit of a pain on stuff like this. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side with the white pigtail, and we got to stuff the wires back in the plug and still have enough room left over for the plug itself. And there we go. Got my 2 pigtails sticking out, and all the wires are stuffed back in the back of the plug. I'm going to put this plug back just the same way that I installed the plug earlier behind the TV. So one thing that you should do when you're mounting your TV is to separate the mount from the plate that goes on the TV. You don't have to. You can try to get the screw started in the TV by having a helper put the TV on their head and try to balance it while you're trying to get the screws started, like I'm doing here. But that's not the way I recommend doing it. I recommend separating this. Usually there's a way to separate the plate. If you're using a style like I've got here with the swing arm, here's a different style here. This one's got a bolt through the middle. So let's go ahead and put this plate on here, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. It makes it so much easier. You can do this by hand with one person. Makes that a breeze to hang up yourself. Now, one thing that you should note is all these styles are not the same. Some of the bigger TVs have, longer brackets and whatnot, but they're going to be similar. There's a way to disengage the plate, but there's going to be variations between the brackets. So all we do here is put these two nuts back on and the TV is secure. Before you tighten them down, you can do a final leveling on the TV. Now let me show you what kind of wall plate I use for the bottom, for your HDMI cables and your AV cables and stuff. So I start by cutting a hole in the drywall to fit this orange 2-gang plate right here. And then I put this plate over top of it. The orange plate is to hold that one in. And here's a picture of the back of it. And once that's in the wall, you have a nice outlet right here to bring your wires through. Okay?